Happy New Year! It's that time of the year when we're coming up with New Year resolutions, whether it's a resolution on your health, your finances, learning a new skill, a new language. But for some of us, it's also that time when we remember about last year's resolutions that we couldn't stick to. Now, today we have a man who turns around businesses and people's lives. So he will give us a few tips on your New Year resolutions and how to make sure that December this year, you'll be ticking off all the boxes. Coming up shortly. Dr. Julius Kipng'etich came to the limelight when he was appointed the Director and CEO of the Kenya Wildlife Services (KWS), where he has been credited for a complete turnaround of the organization. It was during his tenure that KWS recorded tremendous growth and was listed as one of the top 5 most respected parastatals in East Africa. He also served as a Chief Operating Officer of Equity Group Holding Limited, where he spearheaded regional growth, new product development, and the Mobile Virtual Network, MVNO, Equitel Development. He is currently the Regional Chief Executive Officer of Jubilee Holding. Thank you so much, Dr. Julius Kipng'etich, for joining us today. I'd missed this interviewing you. It's been a while.
Yes.
But you're known for turning around companies. I'll also include people's lives. So maybe this year might be different for us if we listen to you at the beginning of the year. Tell us a bit about your resolutions for last year and if you are able to keep track of all your resolutions.
Thank you very much, Cynthia, and welcome back to Kenya.
Thank you.
But I normally don't call them resolutions as such. I always say setting new goals every year. Yeah. But goal setting is not just about a short-term period like 1 year. Goal setting is also about thinking about yourself, the company you work for, your village, your country, in a sort of medium to long term as well. So that then every year, as you tick off 1 year, it's in relation to what's really your medium to long term goal. And so for me, this year is making sure that the company I work for, Jubilee Holdings, which owns insurance companies in 5 countries, but based here in Kenya, is to go through 2022 in the circumstances that we find ourselves in today. We're in the middle of a pandemic, okay, and it's spiking. Omicron is here. There are also reports that it has already mutated to something else. So how do we make sure that we're able to cope with those circumstances?
And it's also an election year.
Correct. So the election year is in August. It's already heating up, and it has been so in Kenya since last year. And making sure that we prepare ourselves for that transition, because in September we'll have a new president, new policies possibly. And so we look at it then and say, how do we adjust the company and prepare ourselves? The other thing that's also changing very quickly that people are not seeing is the impact of technology. It is breathtaking. You know, on Christmas Day, I was watching TV on the launch of the Webb Space Telescope. Now, I would like Kenyans to read about the effects of that telescope in the coming years. It will start sending images from June.
Yes.
And it's going to change our perception of the world, how it started, you know, what is there out there, because it is 100 times more powerful than Hubble telescope that we currently use to explore space. But that's not enough. We have to look at other technologies that are coming in. So space technology is here, you know, IT technology is here, biotechnology is here. All sorts of things are changing the way the world is. So it's going to overturn everything as we know it today in the coming years. So between 2030 and 2050, the world will have changed so fundamentally in the way we have always known. So at individual level, at company level, at community level, at country level, all these changes that are happening in the world, we have to adjust ourselves. Now, God never made us to adjust that quickly.
Yes.
In fact, if you look at science tells us that a human being unlearns the past between 5 to 7 years. Now, but the changes are happening more or less every year.
Yes.
So how do we adjust ourselves as quickly?
With COVID even, it was almost every day.
Instant.
Yes.
You know, I remember when COVID came, the minister just said, everybody go home and stay home. Okay?
Yeah.
Luckily, technology had enabled that you can work from home.
Yeah.
So overnight, companies knew how to use Zoom. Overnight.
Yes.
You know? And I remember we had to send staff home, but we had to continue with customer service. So some members of staff were hearing about VPN modem for the first time. Like, okay, so that's how the way life should be.
Yes, and you have a meeting the next day, so you have to catch up quickly.
Yes, and serve customers.
Yes.
Our customer service center is a location, contact center. And then we normally have around 50 desks. And overnight, they had to work from home. And we had to set up a virtual contact center overnight, within 24 hours.
Yeah.
So my own personal goals, Cynthia, is to make sure that the company I work for is as successful as it gets. And we always try our best. In the last 1 year, we sold a piece of our general insurance company to Allianz, and the 2 transactions were completed in Kenya and Uganda. And then we hope to complete this quarter in the other 3 countries that we operate in, Tanzania, Burundi, and Mauritius. Once we complete all those 5, 66% of our general insurance company, we will partner with Allianz.
Yes.
And to me, that was a very successful transaction, and we are grateful. The other thing also is last year is my daughter went to university. Yes. She did 1 semester virtually. She's doing 2nd year in a university in the US. And to me, that was a very strong success.
Yes.
And my other daughter transitioned to secondary school. And so therefore, a lot of progress is being made. At the beginning of this year, my goal for 2022 is, again, to continue strengthening our company. We want to be a very strong leader in the insurance industry. We are already number 1 in East and Central Africa as the largest insurer and most profitable. And we want to consolidate that leadership. Hopefully, we are thinking of what can we do more in East Africa. And our strategy initially is to deepen in our existing markets, that is, expand insurance in our existing markets. Probably one thing that probably Kenyans don't know is insurance penetration is still very low in relation to economy.
That's
the
true.
Size of the economy. So Kenya is at around 2.4% of the economy is insured, but in other countries it's much lower. In Uganda it's 0.7, in Tanzania it's 0.9. Wow. So if those 2 countries just reach where Kenya is, the unlocking of that insurance potential is incredible. And that's, to us, in the medium term, this year and the next few years, is what we want to do.
Yes.
Is how can we expand insurance in Uganda, in Tanzania, and generally in the Eastern Africa region. That will be an exciting thing, because we are in the business of managing risk. And if we can help you and all other people in the region to manage that risk, that will be a great achievement.
Yes.
So for 2022, number 1 is how can we grow insurance. At a personal home level, one of the things I've always wanted is to read 50 books in a year, 1 per week. Okay, I had reached perhaps even a book per month, but I want now to reduce it to 1 book per week. And that to me is about expanding my knowledge, my skills by reading more. Okay, I normally read online, but I would like to read a physical book. That joy of reading a physical book, I want to go back to it. Then the other one is to travel more. KWS exposed me a lot to a lot of traveling, but I would like to see whether I can make 1 excursion at least once a quarter. Okay, 2 or 3 days take family out and we go some place, discover a new place. And I would urge many Kenyans to do the same. Kenya is a wonderful country.
That's true.
And if you can exploit when you have the time, and it's not expensive as such. And then probably the final thing is I am involved in several charities. Ghetto Classics is one of them. And I also sit on the board of Starry Girls. So I would like to involve myself more in charity work, just to help the less fortunate. Especially, most of these charities have gone through very tough times in 2021 because of COVID. People's incomes are lower, and I would like to extend my help, probably if there's money, but the most important thing is your time and skill to help them. And I would like, 2022 is a time I would like to spend more time to help.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to add another one. I'd like to see, as you're traveling, the photos and so on, more on social media, more pictures and you telling us more about your adventures.
I'm a little conservative with social media.
I've noticed.
I'm old school.
Yes.
If I make excursions,
Would like
definitely
to
you'll
learn
see
from
me
you.
on Twitter.
Please send the photos. But how does one come up with the New Year resolutions and make sure that you actually stick to that plan?
Every human being must define their purpose on this planet. God has given you a very short life. Human life average, in Kenya, average is 61 years. So 61 years is not a long time. And for many adults, people my age, there's not much time left. So the key thing is define your purpose as a human being. And then break that purpose into actions. What are you going to be doing for you to achieve that purpose in life? And so whenever you then define your resolutions for the year, you always go to what action must I take to achieve my purpose?
Yes.
Okay. So to me, that is one thing that I find many young people these days, when I ask that question of purpose, they get a little confused because then they have not thought through.
Yeah.
Because when you are clear in your purpose, what you do becomes much clearer, much easier to define.
Yes.
Because then you are breaking an action which then translates into a clear goal achievement.
Yes. And do you think it's important for one to write down their goals and even their strategy?
When you write down a goal, okay, you are committing yourself. If it remains in your memory, it fades. Because there are so many, in today's world, there's so much information that's being bombarded on you. So I always recommend, make sure you write your goals. Even for me, when I go to my office, every Monday, I write, what are my goals for the week? What must I achieve that week? Okay, and I keep ticking them. And every time I look at it, even over lunch, I look at it and say, how well am I achieving?
Yes, yeah.
So when you write them per week, then it defines what you do in the day.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the year, you will have a list of 52 items that you have said you are going to do. Yeah. And that is how you push. So I would like to urge every viewer, your goals must be written.
Yes. And should you share them with someone and at least be accountable to someone?
Yes. The first accountability, first of all, is to yourself.
Yeah.
Okay? Any other actors around your life are there to support. You can call them a role model, you can call them a mentor, you can call them a coach. But the key thing is be accountable to yourself, okay? And the mentors, the coaches are supposed to are support mechanisms around you. It could even be family. Family members, you share with your family members, your spouse, and say, I think I need to do this week, but I'm not clear about this. Then goal clarity helps you sort out in your mind. It could be, for example, I don't have money to do what I wanted to do.
Yes.
Then you see, do I borrow? Where do I borrow from? Do I borrow from family or from a bank or what? So that's how you extend. So then the key thing is write it down and then jot down exactly what support you require. It could be advice. It could be monetary support. It could be equipment. It could be some tools. Whatever is required, don't hesitate.
Yes.
Okay, to ensure that those goals are easily achieved.
To achieve some of these goals, we need behavior change, and sometimes that change is not as easy. I'm going to come to that, but after the break, so don't go away. Welcome back. Now, before the break, we were talking to Dr. Julius Kipng'etich. He's known for turning around companies, so he might just turn around this year for us. But he was talking about how to come up with your New Year resolutions and how to make sure that you stick to that plan. Dr. Kipng'etich, I hope I'm not putting too much pressure on you, turning around our lives. But one of the things that you even talked about, that one of the things you want to do this year is to read a book every week. Sometimes you realize that we have this ingrained habits that we need to change. How do we do that? And some of them they have been part of us since we were young.
The key thing is to train your mind to say no. A habit, once it becomes part of you, it's very difficult to undo. Okay? Culture is a series of habits. And that's why people say culture is a very difficult thing to change at home or in an organization. It's because we are used to habits. We are designed to play into habits. So, to change a habit, therefore, it is the power of the mind. And that power to say, I want to break this habit. So my recommendation, as always, is you must always work on your mind. Okay? A habit is a power of the mind to say, I will do something. And you can tell your mind today, I am not going to do it. Some people give up along the way. So don't give up. I would urge you, the minute you say, this is my goal, and the habits and the behaviors that I'm exhibiting are incongruent, are not in congruence with the goal I'm aiming at, then you now tell your mind, I must change my habits, and must change my habits. And what are things? It is what you do daily. Okay? So when you wake up, what do you do? Okay? Part of my resolution this year is to lose 5 kilos. So it means changing my routine habits. Then the next thing is ask yourself, what are you eating? Okay? And I have asked experts to tell me exactly how to eat and in what times of the day. Yes. Okay? And then also, I also have to train my mind and say, it means I have to change what I do. Okay? And to break those habits, I have told my mind I must do it. Okay? And so therefore, the process begins. Initially, it's a bit rough, and it's a bit difficult, but the body adjusts to a new habit, new way. So let's see the results that come out. And if the results are there, it's also important to reward yourself.
Yes, yeah, okay.
Okay, and say, I've done well, okay? And so therefore, the reward to yourself, okay, could be you give it to a charity, or you reward yourself with a travel and say, I've done well, okay? Because then that encourages, that gives you the motivation to keep continuing and continuing. Yeah. Yes. So you must always reward yourself.
For you, it's going to be a bit more challenging because you've told the whole nation, so we'll be checking to see if you've lost the 5 kilos.
Those are the accountabilities we are talking about.
You have the whole country as an accountability partner. And even the books. The books I'll be checking, and we'll exchange notes on that. But what happens when now people are excited, so you can come up with all these new goals. But what happens when you get into, a few months later and you realize you're not keeping up with your goals? How do you get yourself back on track?
First of all, don't punish yourself too much, okay? It's good to reprimand yourself and say, I'm not doing well. What is it? Then you could go to a mentor, an accountability partner, a mentor or a coach or a friend, and say, this is what I set to do. I'm not doing very well. What could I be doing wrong? And then that conversation, you could, the process of self-discovery, say, I'm going to adjust the following. So Don't fear sharing your challenges with a friend, a mentor, a coach, your spouse, and say, I'm struggling to meet my goals. Where could we go wrong? So either you adjust the goal, probably you set it too high or too low, or the methodology of going about it could be wrong, so you could adjust, okay? Or there could be some externality, some external things that are distracting you from achieving your goal. Then you make the adjustment, because life, remember, is not a straight line. Life is a series of zigzags. So this series of zigzags, you have to adjust your life as you go along. So you could go reach media, and then you realize, oh, I'm totally off track. What do I need to do? I make the necessary adjustments and come back on the rails. And then the scorecard need not be 100. Sometimes you can set very high targets for yourself, but remember, 80% is still an A.
Yes. But sometimes, even as you're trying to stay on track and you realize that I think I can do better, then you can also change your goal and try and attain much higher. Have you ever gone through that?
My own experience is the human mind has power beyond what you can imagine.
That's true.
I remember when I was appointed director of KWS, I asked myself, I have nothing, I don't know anything about conservation. But I told my mind, take it as a challenge. I'm bringing in my management skills. Conservation skills, I'll ask those who know. Then we put our heads together, and then we will make this thing successful. That's it. So don't fear when you set a goal or when the future is not clear.
Yes.
Clarity always comes as you go nearer to it, the goal. So I would urge you, the first thing is to remove fear. Remove fear from setting your goals. And sometimes you even don't have the skills to reach there. Borrow the skills, learn from other people, seek help, and you keep moving. Because I always say, whenever you are setting goals, don't underestimate the power of your mind. Look at it this way. The richest man today is Elon Musk. Yesterday, he increased his wealth by $28 billion in one single day. $28 billion is Kenya government budget for 1 year. It's 3 trillion shillings. Did God give him more brains than all of us? The answer is no. It's just that the power of imagination that he's using to create different companies is what he's using. Now, God has given us exactly the same power he gave Elon Musk. It's exactly the same. Each of us has it. Your job is to discover it. Use your power of your imagination to discover what God gave you as your goal, your purpose, and use it well and change the world. Each of us, this planet can be as good as we want if we use the power of our brains well. And we can unleash that power. So
that's a challenge.
Yes.
I might just change my list.
Just change your list.
But as you're talking about your list and your goals, I've noticed that a lot of them have to do with your workplace and productivity. And some people might feel like he's saying that because, you know, he's top management. But even when you're lower management, even an intern, should you include your company or where you're working as one of your goals?
I always say a company is your second home. Your first home is where you are, because remember, the company you work for, you are legally required to work for 8 hours. Yes. But actually, in practice, you work for more than 8 hours, because even it's part of you take work home, okay, or you come early. So there are so many forces working on you as an individual. You must combine these forces together to create an optimum point where it gives you the maximum possible you can get subject to all these constraints. That is what you are aiming at all the time. Yeah. So you must balance all these competing forces so that then the home gets the attention required, The workplace gets the attention that's required. Your friends get the attention that's required. So you are living at a balance, optimal point in all these forces that are acting on you. Yes. And as you balance them, okay, you are balancing them at the maximum happiest point. That's the thing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kipng'etich, for joining us today. And as you heard from him, even as I was talking about his books, it's still work in progress. Don't be too hard on yourself when it comes to your New Year resolution. I think one of the things that I've learned today is you have to come up with a game plan. Write them down, have a strategy, have the right people to hold your hand, and also be accountable. Well, that's it for this week. Next week, we'll be talking about financial goals with practical examples. See you next time.